Yeah, Jeff's in the other room.
Very good. The other room doesn't count.
Well, I mean,
He's
Yes.
coming.
Okay.
Surprised we haven't seen Alderman Jettie.
And Steve's here. You good?
It is 8 o'clock.
Yes, I don't know. I can't see the the chamber, so I might have to rely on you guys as far as handling who's talking when. But I can call us to order. This is the Comcast Franchise Renewal Subcommittee. Most of our members are attending in person. I am not due to
I'm not.
cough and
Can he make me a call?
I see Mr. Morgan has also joined remotely. All right. As I said, my explanation for why I'm not physically present is that I was not feeling well this morning, and rather than expose the other members to whatever it is I have, I opted to socially distance. But I believe we do have a quorum in person, so I will do a roll call vote. Attendance, Cheryl Linder.
Here.
Attorney Bolton.
Here.
Alderman Jettie. Kim Kleiner.
Here.
Jeff Painter.
Here.
Pete Johnson.
Present.
Nick Meiserich.
Here.
Cole Morgan.
Here remotely.
And Cole, because of the expiration of the state of emergency, could you state for the record why you're remote?
I had an immovable meeting that butted up against this I wouldn't be able to make. So instead of not attending, I'm here virtually.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
everyone attending remotely should also state whether they're, or who, if anyone, is in the room with them.
Good reminder. I am alone. And Mr. Morgan?
I'm in my office alone.
All right. If we've taken care of that,
Mr.
Ms.
Chairman?
Kleiner,
Alderman
yes.
Jettie just showed up in the chamber.
All right, thank you.
Morning.
Again, I don't have a video feed of the chamber, so if, can someone let me know if, once Alderman Jettie is settled in?
Not quite yet.
Okay.
Settled.
All right. Welcome, Alderman. If we could begin the substantive part of the meeting. The franchise survey has concluded, and we have some results. Ms. Kleiner, would you like to lead off the discussion of that?
Certainly. So we did, thank you very much to the IT department who consolidated the results of the survey. We had a total of 1,218 total responses. We will post the survey with the minutes to this meeting so that members of the public can view them. When looking at the survey, the first question was how many of the respondents were a Comcast subscriber. Of the 1,218, 1,165 or 95.6% responded yes. We then moved to if they had answered yes and they were a subscriber with Comcast. Then we asked them what services that they did subscribe to. Cable television was 73%, internet was 98.7%, home telephone 43.3%, Xfinity mobile services 13.1%, and home security at 2.5%. We then moved into how much of their total bill was for Comcast services, and what services, how much was under $50, 1.5%. $51 to $100 was 16%. $101 to $150 was 19.2%. $151 to $200, 19.1%. And $201 to $250 at 23.5%. Interestingly enough, over 250 was 20%. So the highest category seemed to fall between the $201 to $250 monthly expense.
No, I think that, you're correct.
Yeah.
Sorry, I couldn't read it quite right across the screen.
So we offered a number of services that we listed, and we were asking the respondents to indicate which services, streaming services such as YouTube or Netflix or Hulu, they subscribe to. Without going through all of them, I see that we've shared them on the TV. It seemed like 39% of the respondents subscribed to cable TV and paid under $50 for additional streaming services. 13% said they no longer subscribe to cable TV and pay under $50 monthly for streaming services. And 21.3% subscribe for Comcast cable TV, but don't pay for any additional streaming services. So it's kind of a good gauge of the range there. We asked respondents in question 5, how likely are you to drop traditional cable TV in the future? 27.6 indicated that they had already dropped their cable TV. 24% were strongly considering it. 24% were researching their options and may change in the next year or two. Interestingly enough, only 9% that responded indicated that they would not consider dropping traditional cable TV at this time. Question number 6 was only answered if they indicated that they answered no to question 1. So if they were not a subscriber, 8.9% indicated they had never been a Comcast customer. 22.3% indicated they were a Comcast customer within the last year, and 68.6% were a Comcast customer within the last 5. And question number...
Oh, which tells me I'm not buying stock in Comcast.
It's an interesting, and question number 7 was dropped. Question number 8 was, please rate the following, with 5 being the highest and 1 being the lowest. This relates to customer satisfaction. So there's a large range here. I think interestingly enough, over the 1,201 that responded with Comcast technical support satisfaction, the highest percentage seemed to be rate average, with 36.2% average, but then you move to 22.3 unsatisfied and 21.9 very unsatisfied. Then you move to customer support, such as customer service issues, 1,200 responding, again, the highest percentage in the average at 33, 23.8 unsatisfied, and 26.1 very unsatisfied. When you looked at promptness of service or waiting time, again, the trend seemed to fall the same, with 34.9 average, but 23.1 unsatisfied, or 24.2 very unsatisfied. So interestingly enough, in all areas of customer support, the trend seemed to remain the same. The highest being the average, but certainly a considerable amount being unsatisfied or very unsatisfied. Question 9 dealt with whether they had physically visited the Comcast local office. Out of 1,202, 72.8% had. 67.3 of them said that their office experience was satisfactory, 32.6 indicating it was not. We did ask if the problem was addressed satisfactorily. 67% saying it was, 32.8 considering it was not. Promptness, 59% indicating service was prompt, 41% indicating it was not. The next was about the individual representative that waited on them. 84.1% indicated that was satisfactory, 15.8 considering it was not. Question 10 dealt with Comcast support numbers for assistance. And again, the trend it seems to carry throughout the survey. So was their service satisfactory when they called Comcast support? 61.7% consider it satisfactory, 38.2 not. Was their problem addressed? 44.9% felt that it had been satisfactorily dealt with. 55% considered it had not. The individual problem, and I'm sorry, does anyone see the next one being the same as the one above?
No.
I think we asked the same question twice. So I think that's, I'm happy to see at least the answer is relatively the same. So I'm gonna move to the next, was the service prompt? 39.3% yes, 60.6 no. Were you put on hold for a long period of time? Well, that jumps way up to 79.7% yes, and 20.2% no. and was the representative polite, 75.6% yes, and 24% no. And Chairman, would you like me to just continue, or would we like to discuss? That's about halfway through the survey.
Oh,
May not have heard you.
I think you're on mute, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, I had muted myself. I was coughing earlier. So I can't see if there are any hands or anyone would like to make any comments at this point. But certainly, if you do have comments or questions so far.
I have a question, Mr.
Thank you,
Chairman.
Alderman.
Alderman Jettie. So there were 1,143 survey respondents. Do we know how many subscribers there are?
That was one of their proprietary numbers, I believe. So I don't think we know how many subscribers there are.
Okay, so we don't know what percentage,
We do not.
what percentage the respondents who, respondents compared to subscribers, we don't know how good a survey this is. We don't know, or do we? I'm not a survey person, so I don't know. Is
For
this-
any survey of this type, I think the number of respondents is pretty good, just for a general survey that's out, the way we put it out. I think we could look at the last time it was done and get a number, but I don't have that in front of me.
I believe this is 3 times the number of
Yeah.
respondents from the last time.
Yes.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman, if I could remind
Please.
people, for the transcribers' benefit, we have to identify ourselves. So after I spoke, Mr. Johnson spoke, and then Mr. Mistovich spoke. For the
Thank you,
benefit of the
Alderman.
transcriber.
This is Andrew Sonota again. Just to touch on the quality of the survey, to any of these surveys that are sort of self-selected pools of respondents, where they actually affirmatively go to our website to answer the questions, it's not the same degree of statistical support that, say, a random poll of Comcast subscribers, if we got a list of, it's not quite the same standard. And, we honestly, I don't know that we know if, someone might have responded to the poll twice from different accounts or something like that. So the information is helpful, and I don't think we necessarily have any reason to suspect that people might have been answering twice or something like that. But this would be a self-selected response pool.
Mr. Chairman, Kim Kleiner.
Yes.
So, it was a SurveyMonkey designed, and we do get a download of timestamps and IP addresses.
Okay, that's excellent.
So you look, and we did look through the log yesterday, you look to make sure that you don't see common threads, 50 from one address. We did not. Of course, that doesn't mean that someone wouldn't have multiple machines, but we would doubt that.
As I say, I didn't think it was likely, and that's reassuring to know that our data is a bit better than if we just asked the questions.
And if I could follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Please.
Alderman Jettie. I didn't mean to criticize the survey. I was just wondering if we knew how representative it was, that's all. I think it's all valuable information. But,
All right, any other comments or questions?
Are we going to, Alderman Jettie again, are we going to continue going through it, or are you asking for questions about what we've gone through so far, or
Yes, yep,
for everything? Okay.
all right. There's nothing, perhaps, Ms. Kleiner, would you like to continue, or maybe pick things that you feel are most important for us to consider?
Certainly, Kim Kleiner. So I think, question 11, certainly, the overall rating for technical support and customer survey. These next group of questions, you're going to find a lot satisfied, you know, the answer's satisfied, very satisfied, down to very unsatisfied. And this question dealt with overall rating for technical support and customer service. Again, if you look back, you see this, the average, tends to be the highest percentage responding with 33%. And then they move to the unsatisfied at 25 and the very unsatisfied at 19, which if you go back to the questions, before, you saw that same trend. So certainly I think this is important feedback for Comcast. This might be, and to Alderman Jetti's question, you know, if you have 43,000 Comcast subscribers, and I don't know the number, but I'll try to get it for you. You know, 1,200 is only a small percentage of them, but with the trend from average to unsatisfied throughout, that's 1,200 of your customers that I think you want to hear from. So the next gets into their monthly Comcast bill, and I think we've heard a lot about this as a committee and as a city, more to price. And the first one is right out, do you think Comcast prices are reasonable considering the product they provide? 94.3 did not, out of 1,209. You know, it certainly seemed, and they don't seem to understand the rate structure either, with 73.9% indicating they did not understand that. And 91.4 were considering alternatives. The next question is similar. It deals with how satisfied are you with Comcast billing? This time, the highest percentage were very unsatisfied at 38%, down to average at 20%. Only 2 indicating they were very satisfied with Comcast's monthly billing. We then got into Comcast signal reliability and had the respondents experienced any outages or different problems within the last year. The highest percentage of people did seem to indicate that they had seasonal, high volume connection issues. At 50%, 42% said they had lost it for several hours. And then the next was 42% indicating it was problems with Comcast's cable boxes in their home. The following question dealt with the overall rating of signal quality. A little bit higher here with 40% considered it average, 17.8 unsatisfied, and 11 very unsatisfied. 22.9% were satisfied, And that's a little higher than what you've seen throughout the rest of the survey in that category. The question 16 was their overall rating of the user experience and how satisfied were they with the user experience. 26% were satisfied, 40 considered it average experience, 13.9 unsatisfied, moving down to 12.2 very unsatisfied. We then moved to some more specific questions that we had discussed as a committee, asking the respondents if they were aware that the city offers local public educational and government television programs, our channels 16, 96, and 99, with online 24/7 streaming. 52% indicated they were aware, and 47.8% indicated they were not. So I guess that's an opportunity for us with that question. We asked how many of the respondents watched local PEG programming. Interestingly enough, I looked at this question because only 435 answered this. So 783 skipped this question altogether. So that's an interesting, when you note and you look at the results of it. But of those 435, 61% indicated that they did watch 16, 96, and 99. Only 22% live stream. So I think I wondered why so many respondents had skipped the question altogether. But certainly, I think we still have an opportunity there.
That's answered later on. When you look at the number of people who never watch at all,
Oh, would you be?
they all skip this question.
We asked, one of the areas the committee was looking at was if they would watch, if it was in high definition. Again, at least 1,169 answered, 15.8 saying yes, 35 maybe, and 49 no, so that was pretty strong.
Once again, those are the folks that said they would never watch in the first place. that
Right.
50%, so you have to look
Right.
at those numbers.
And how, the next question dealt more specifically with aldermanic meetings. And again, 1,193 did answer. Unfortunately, the highest percentage was they never watched my local government in action. At 44, 32 saying, percent saying seldom. The Board of Education and local sports on Channel 99 had 50% saying they had never watched ETV out of 1,193, and 27% saying seldom, so. And then we asked more specifically on Channel 96. Seems to be a trend, 54.5 saying they had never watched Channel 96 local programming, and 29% saying seldom. And the last question, we asked more specifically to COVID and how people received their COVID-19 news. It seems WMUR in Manchester was 65%, seemed to be the leader. I was happy to see at least 33% had viewed the national website, and then 35, almost 36% tuned into a Boston TV station, with only 29.6 in print. And that was the end of the survey.
All right, thank you. And are there any questions, comments, or observations that people would like to make with regard to the survey?
So Kim Kleiner, I will make one. I was surprised to see the number of people that don't watch 16, 96, or 99. But when you're looking at someone who works for the city, of course, I think you're kind of tainted there. We live by those channels. I think it offers us a lot of opportunity. And I'd like to see maybe a survey out to the residents to see what type of programming they would like on Channel 96. I mean, maybe we take this as an opportunity to find out how we can better serve our community. That's my comment.
All right, any other,
Mr. Chairman?
Alderman?
Yeah, so, I was, what I found striking is that approximately 90% of the people who answered this survey said they have either dropped or are in the process of dropping or are thinking about dropping cable TV service. So, you know, the fact that our franchise fee is limited to the people who are getting cable TV services and you know, 4% of their bill, you know, if we are dependent on that to finance and provide local access TV, you know, the public education, government channels, and you know, all of this equipment and you know, the studios and the you know, all the infrastructure required to provide this service to the public. You know, I think we're in danger of losing that, and you know, we have to look at the possibility, the real possibility that you know, that we're going to have to pay for this out of the general fund. And I think it's a, you know, I personally think it's a great service that we provide to the citizens, that they are able to watch, you know, I don't want to be trite, but a, you know, government in action, so to speak. You know, that they can watch the government meetings, they can, and even, and now, you know, one of the silver linings of the epidemic is that we've discovered or learned how to use Zoom so people can even participate remotely. I think it's a great service. It's a great opportunity for people to be able to participate, you know, observe government in action and participate in government in action. And I think it's something that, you know, personally, I think it's valuable and ought to and it ought to continue. But we have to consider the possibility that our, you know, funding source, you know, may be drying up here unless the federal law can be changed to apply that franchise fee to, you know, the other services, the internet services, and you know that the Comcast and the two other providers in the city, you know, they're still using our rights of way. You know, why we can tax them for using our right-of-way to provide cable TV and not using those same, cables and telephone poles and rights-of-way to provide the internet service without paying anything is a mystery to me, but I guess that, to solve that, we have to talk to our, senators and congressmen, congresspeople. The other thing, like Director Kleiner, I was disappointed to learn that so few people take advantage of that, apparently, at least the survey respondents, that so few people, watch it at all, and so maybe Director Kleiner is correct when she suggests that there's an opportunity there for us to try to get the word out and let people know that it's available to them and that they can do that. Maybe that would increase the participation. But those are my comments. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Yeah, this is Cole Morgan. I just have a short comment, mostly off what the alderman just said. I think that in the little that I do know, it could be fairly tough to have the internet lines treated in the same way as the cable TV lines for right of way. From some small bits of research, so don't take that as any kind of fact. But I do think that one of the interesting things that, the reason I joined the board was to potentially look at something like municipal broadband, which effectively does the same thing with a little more infrastructure and investment. So hopefully through potentially other programs versus just charging for right of way, we may be able to do something to the similar effect and have a vastly larger budget for the city of Nashua's infrastructure.
Could,
Thank you.
Alderman Jettie here, could I ask a follow-up question through you to Mr. Cole?
Certainly.
When you talk about municipal broadband, could you explain to me what that means?
Yes, absolutely. This is Cole Morgan again. So municipal broadband is where a municipality starts their own internet company effectively. So we would purchase basically bulk internet and resell it to the residents. There's varying methods of how that happens. It can be done via a citywide wireless system that can provide the same speeds as wired, or it could, in some situations, mean running our own lines to the entire city, which could obviously be very costly. So somewhere in between very low cost and very high cost, it would mean purchasing either from Comcast or Level 3 or other large providers, and reselling it. But the benefits of this could mean we could potentially offer our residents some of the fastest internet in the entire country, speeds in the multiple gigabits, things that are only really found in Silicon Valley, for prices that are maybe marginally less to vastly less than Comcast or Verizon or Fairpoint charges.
All right. I mean, that certainly are things that I think we'll certainly be looking more deeply into. As far as the agreement itself, or the franchise agreement with Comcast, that's probably the more immediate issue that we need to address, and is something that's perhaps a parallel consideration, but it's a different question, I'd say. I think Alderman Jettie's point about the potential for significant loss of funding for the PEG programs, and of course for the city's share of the general fund share of the franchise fee. Those are both things that we've discussed in the past and during the previous renewal cycle, and appear to be becoming rather more pressing going forward. But as the Alderman observed, I think there, at least the short-term solutions to that are outside the city's control at the moment. But we definitely need to monitor that, and certainly if people feel strongly about their access to PEG, they need to consider that if they're looking at the you know, terminating their TV subscriptions, and also that they need to make sure that the city government knows that they're committed to those things. So I was pleased to see that we actually had such a significantly higher response rate than we did in the previous cycle. The other thing that I think as a short-term thing that we need to do to be able to continue our fact-finding as far as what we want to do for the things that we can control in the Comcast agreement is that we do need to look at a time where we can have a hearing with the public, preferably, well, now it would have to be in person, but I was wondering if we could discuss when would the alderman, either the aldermanic chamber or the auditorium would be available for us to have that type of a meeting, when our members would be available to participate. So are there any comments on when would be a good time to have that type of a hearing? How we can transition into sort of more of a, to hear directly from people, sort of unscripted, as you know, surveys are very helpful, but they are giving sort of binary questions, or in this case, often you know, degrees of intensity on issues that on questions that we ask, and sometimes it would be helpful to hear comments that are outside the scope of what we've scripted. Do any members have any comments about holding a public hearing?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Painter. I'm just going back on, you know, the auditorium, I think is going to be available, what, mid-July, somewhere around there. So, you know, maybe we could plan on something in August. Access AV will be installing the hybrid version of that by the last week in June. So by the time the auditorium becomes available, we'll have that, you know, set up there as well, the hybrid setup.
Mr. Painter, it's Pete Johnson. I would think that we might want to push it back to September. During the middle of the summer, you aren't going to get people in. If you want, you know, a lot of folks to potentially attend, I think it's going to have to be after Labor Day.
I just meant that when the auditorium was going to be available, and then we could schedule it.
Nick Miservich, should we plan on a single public hearing or break it out into the different wards to make it easier for citizens to attend? Just throwing out a question.
That's
Alderman Jettie?
good suggestion. I don't know that we've necessarily considered before having ward-based meetings. I don't know, my recollection of the attendance at the hearing that we had when we did the last renewal, it wasn't a huge turnout. So I'm not sure that we would have the attendance that would justify having 9 separate meetings. Perhaps Alderman Jenny, you might have some observation as a ward alderman.
Yes, I can tell you that, the meetings the ward meetings that we've had have been very poorly attended. And I don't know if that's because people just weren't interested, or whether we didn't do a very good job about, getting the word out and letting them know that we were having these meetings and that they could participate. Back before COVID, the ward meetings, the mayor would have a town hall meeting, and the meetings that he had in Ward 5 were at the main Dunstable School were pretty well attended. So maybe it's because of COVID that the last few outreaches to people were not very well attended, but so I guess my thinking that, the poor attendance is probably, now that I think about it, it's probably, it has a lot to do with COVID and the epidemic. And, but I agree with the chairman. I don't anticipate that there would, that the attendance would be would be worth it to have separate ward meetings. And it's not a ward issue, it's a citywide issue. So I think having one, public hearing is probably, that's probably what I think would be better.
Mr. Chairman, Pete Johnson. I believe that the last time we did have our public hearing, that Mr. Christensen said it was one of his most well-attended public hearings that he had been to in the state the last time. So we did have a decent turnout for our public hearing at that point. But given the limited purview of what this committee or CTAB can do and the city can do in its franchise renewal, realistically, there's not a lot that can be done. We've discussed that in the past, and bringing that down to a ward level, I don't know that you'd have too many people that would come other than to complain about pricing or customer service. We may have a little bit of leeway on that's in the franchise, but it's determining how that service level by the provider is being met. So
just to clarify, my thoughts about the attendance at the hearing last cycle was more in the nature of, if we divided that by 9, we probably wouldn't have a pretty, if you've got 15 or 20 people and you divide that by 9, that's not going to be a particularly well-attended hearing at each of those separate sites. But I agree that we did get some helpful feedback the last time, and that's, I think, one of the reasons why I think we need to be committed to doing it again.
Mr. Chairperson, could we
Yes.
Possibly maybe consider, if we're, Cheryl Lindner, if we are considering a larger room, the schools have the auditorium as a larger space, which would even surpass the amount of people we could fit in our auditorium, I believe. So if we're concerned about space and we're not looking to do this for a few months, maybe the schools would be an option.
All right, so we do apparently have a few options, and perhaps we can follow up on some of those options and see about different availability and where we think might be the most likely to garner the most attendance, so that we can get more valuable input from the citizens.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Ms. Kleiner.
Kim Kleiner, I would like to suggest that, and I think one of our members, maybe Mr. Johnson, brought this up at the last meeting. Miss, Brian, Christensen, thank you, I'm drawing a blank. Mr. Christensen had volunteered to come to the committee. Did we want to look at maybe scheduling that between now and a public hearing? Because I do agree with Mr. Johnson, getting people during the month of July or August is going to be a feat in itself.
I do agree with that as well, and I think that it would be helpful to have some time with Mr. Christensen before the hearing. I think he'll certainly want to attend that, but I think we have some, questions for him that it might be helpful to have those already answered for the public prior to a public hearing.
Kim Kleiner, if it's the committee's pleasure, we could reach out to Mr. Christensen and see if he is available for either in 2 weeks or the meeting after that.
All right, that sounds good to me. Does anyone else have any objection to that?
We're all saying no. We're shaking our heads no. You can't see it.
All right. Thank you for I did put the live stream up on mute on one of my computer monitors here, but it's a few seconds behind. So as far as showing what the video, so I appreciate the observations there. All right. So I think with that as our sort of next action item or set of action items, I think we've probably reached the end of our agenda. Does anyone have any other comments?
Mr. Chair, Jeff Painter.
Yes, Mr. Painter.
Just one thing back on the franchise renewal. While it's not going to solve the problem of people leaving cable, we do have the option of asking for 5%. You know, I mean, that still is an option that is within our power. And dead silence. I just wanted to bring it up.
Yes, I think I'm speaking for myself. I know that isn't in fact within our remit. I guess I'm hesitant to do things that increase the cost and might even, as far as the difference between 4% of 10% of their current subscriber base versus 4% of 10% of their current subscriber base, I'm not sure that would provide significant enough revenue to certainly make up for that type of a loss. I don't know that the full loss is likely to happen. I know sometimes people that are responding to surveys might be feel the most intense about something, but this certainly should be of concern to Comcast as well as to us, and I would expect them to be making changes to try to address some of that concern. But I guess I'm hesitant to increase the burden on subscribers that the city has, and I think would probably, I mean, that certainly would be something that probably would be worth discussing at the public hearing to get the public's take on that. How averse would they be to that 1% increase? My guess is that they're probably not going to be particularly pleased by it. but I think it's probably worth discussing and getting, documenting that supposition.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Alderman Jettie here, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Alderman?
So, we had, a couple of meetings ago, we were, several meetings ago, we had talked about, whether or not we thought it was worthwhile to, get the assistance of, legal counsel. Do we have any news on that front? I think Attorney Bolton was going to reach out,
I've reached out, I've talked to and gotten a proposal from one firm in the Boston area, and I've reached out to a New Hampshire firm with some expertise. They indicated they would send a proposal, they've not done so, so. I don't know why they haven't. I've spoken with them twice, and it apparently is not at the top of anyone's to-do list over there.
so could I follow up, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Alderman.
So, having, spoken to these two law firms, do you, and you've been through this before, do you, what is your feeling about whether we need, or whether, more importantly, whether you need, their expertise in this thing or not? Do you have any sense of that or not?
I think there is so little that we can impact that it's hard for me to see where spending the money is going to produce a result that's beneficial enough to offset the expense. We're not going to have any impact on the rates which are charged, which seem to be, to the extent people have issues, that seems to be the biggest issue. The service is too expensive for what is being provided, according to the survey result. In spite of that, 90% of them continue to subscribe, although 90% of them are considering leaving. I suppose if people started leaving in droves, that might inspire Comcast to take a look at their price structure. And perhaps they do that on a constant basis anyway. But nevertheless, I don't think hiring a law firm, no matter how much expertise they have, is going to impact that at all. The same is true about the programming. Comcast gets to put on whatever networks and channels and so forth, and correspondingly charge whatever they determine is beneficial to the company. So if there are certain types of programming that, our citizens want, they ought to make that known directly to Comcast, because there's nothing we can do about it. And that's true whether we hire lawyers or not. After that, could we massage the language in the contract that requires them to provide customer service? And I think the results of the survey are pretty mixed on that. I'm not sure what being average satisfied even means, but about 50% are average or better satisfied, and about 50% are less than average satisfied. That may be the best anyone can do in most lines of enterprise. So I don't know how much impact we could actually achieve there either. So unless we had a specific goal in mind that we could actually inquire and say, okay, law firm, what would be your approach to improve the service in this particular area? Maybe a lawyer could convince us that it would be worthwhile to follow their approach and let them advise us on how to do that. It's hard for me, as I sit here, to imagine what that could be.
If I could follow up.
Yes,
Mr.
Alderman
Chairman.
Jettie.
So I think what you're, I hate to read people's minds. Are you saying that when you spoke to this Boston law firm, did you talk to them about what they think they could do for us? And did you come away with an impression that, that you don't think they could do, that, what they could do is not worth it? Is that?
Fellow I spoke with was extremely knowledgeable. He had done this often in the past, and he'd done that, in fact, for the city of Nashua back about 15 years or so ago. So this, I don't mean to reflect negatively on the individual or the firm at all. He was extremely knowledgeable. But I didn't get a lot of sense that great things could be achieved.
Okay. Okay, thank you. That makes it clear to me. Thank you.
All right. Are there any other comments or questions or discussion that members of the committee would like to have?
I might just mention that on Nashua ETV coming up, I possibly tonight and tomorrow night, or at least over the next 3 nights, we'll be doing live presentations of the graduation ceremonies from Stello Stadium on Channel 99. So just let folks know.
Excellent. Anything else? If not, is there a motion?
Jeff Painter, motion to adjourn.
All right, there's a motion to adjourn. The vote has to be by roll call. Andrew Sonoda votes yes. Cheryl Lindner,
Yes.
Attorney Bolton,
Yes.
Alderman Jettie,
Yes.
Ms. Kleiner,
Yes.
Mr. Painter,
Yes.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Miservich,
Yes.
Mr. Morgan.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. We'll see everyone in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks.